Hello Palliser staff. The objectives of this video are to introduce you to the 3 different building systems and alarm systems that are in each one of our Palliser owned facilities, as well as teach you how to use your fob. We will teach you how to use your fob to unarm a building, how to enter a building, and how to arm a building when you leave. Let's start with the 3 different building systems or alarm systems that are in each one of our facilities. The first is a fire alarm system. Fire alarm system is fairly self-explanatory and is obviously used in case of an emergency of fire or similar type action in a building. A building alarm system is more of an internal function for our facility services people, and those alarms tell us when there's a change in temperature in the facility, if there's a change in water pressure, if there's a change in electricity, anything that could cause an issue or a problem in the building. And the third alarm is a motion alarm, or you could also call it a burglar alarm. Basically, that alarm is triggered anytime there's an unidentified motion in the building when the building's motion alarm is armed. So you might ask yourself, what do all these alarms have to do with me as an employee? Well, there's really 2 main concerns here. One is, and most importantly, is safety. Every alarm has a safety function in it, and it's designed to make sure that our buildings and our work areas are as safe as possible. The second is false alarms. Every time that an alarm is engaged, our employees have to be dispatched to go investigate what those alarms are. That qualifies for building and motion alarms. So for example, a building alarm might go off in the middle of the night, and our employee has to get up, travel to that facility, and investigate what caused that alarm to go off. Sometimes those alarms are problems with the building, and sometimes they're human error. For example, we were here at Sunnyside School, and there's an open window. Now during the day, an open window obviously provides fresh air, cools down a room that's too warm, but in the evening or when you leave the school, it can cause all kinds of problems. And one of the main problems is that it can bring in cold air into the building and then set off the building alarm, indicating a cold temperature alarm. The open window not only causes issues with building alarms, but it can also cause issues with motion alarms. So for example, an open window and a strong wind that we do get down here in southern Alberta can blow something right off a shelf, can blow paper around, for example, loose hanging paper that gets blown around not necessarily by an open window, but by the heating in a school or the air conditioning in a school. Any sort of airflow throughout a classroom can swivel paper around and set off a motion alarm. Again, engaging one of our facility services people to have to come and investigate the problem. So now let's take a moment and explain what actually happens each time one of these alarms go off. Now when a fire alarm goes off in one of our schools, it immediately engages our emergency services, our local emergency services people, through our alarm monitoring company. Then our facility services supervisor is contacted to make sure that we've got Palliser staff on site. Each one of our schools goes through a number of fire alarm drills each year, and our staff and students are well aware of the actions that have to be performed when a fire alarm goes off to make sure that everyone leaves the building safely. The next system is a building alarm system. That's a silent alarm that our students and staff would never hear. When one of those alarms is triggered, it sends an internal signal to our control panel, and one of our staff members identifies the issue and dispatches one of our facility services people to investigate the problem. That can happen during the day, can happen at night, and all of those alarms have to be investigated immediately because it could cause severe damage to the building or could create a safety issue. The third and final alarm is a motion alarm. So when a motion alarm is set off in one of our facilities, a call goes automatically to our alarm monitoring company. They then have a list of employees based on where they live geographically and how close they are to the school that they dispatch somebody to that alarm. That employee then has to contact our facility services supervisor and let him or her know that they are being dispatched to a motion alarm. Any alarm that comes in after 11 o'clock at night also has to include local police authorities, because our employees do not know what they're entering into. They don't know if there's actually somebody in the building that's not supposed to be, or if the alarm has been triggered by accident or some other sort of false alarm scenario. As we discussed earlier, false alarms can be triggered both in the building and in the motion alarm systems. It's estimated that false alarms cost our school division about $13,000 a year in false callouts. That's time and travel for our employees to actually have to be dispatched to deal with a false alarm. So you can see the importance of us making sure that we educate our employees so that they understand how those alarm systems work and what they can do to minimize false alarms. Our school division uses a fob system to access buildings, to arm buildings, and unarmed buildings. The fob is this black key looking item with a round silver circle at the top, and they're issued at the discretion of principals and site supervisors to employees that they believe will need after-hour access to facilities. Now that we understand what a fob is, we're going to take you to the front doors and show you how to use it to open the building, to arm the building, and unarm the building. So the first scenario we want to look at is if we're coming up to an armed building. Now the way to tell if the building is armed is beside the door is the fob reader. This is the fob reader. When you walk up to a building that's armed, there will be a constant red light. The way for you to enter the building is to take your fob, simply touch it to the fob reader, and access the building. Once you have touched it, you will see that the constant red light will go away and the light will then start to blink green. Sometimes when you come up to a building, you might be unsure as to whether or not it's armed or unarmed. The good thing about our fob system is that it doesn't matter. As soon as you touch your fob to the fob reader, it disarms the building if it's armed and opens the door. So you can actually use your fob instead of your key, and I would highly recommend that you get in the practice of using your fob to open locked doors instead of your key, because you'll never, ever, ever have to worry about opening up an armed building because the fob will disarm it. Each facility has one of these little white buttons close by the door. If you don't know where yours is in your school, ask your principal or your caretaker, or go have a look at where the fob door is. Now we're going to talk about how to arm a building before you leave. The first thing you have to do is make sure that there's nobody else in the facility before you arm the building and walk out. Make sure you talk to your principal and understand the system that your school may have to make sure that it's empty before you leave. Some schools have a sign-in, sign-out system. Some schools have a check-in, check-out system at the door. Just make sure you're aware of what the system is in your school. It's really very simple. You simply make sure the doors are locked, simply touch the button, and go out and touch your fob to the fob reader, and the alarm will be set. Light will turn constant red. The building is alarmed. If by chance you believe you have set off the alarm by accident, there is one way to tell. This light will flash constantly if the building is in alarm. And at that point, if you take your fob and touch it to the fob reader, you will disengage the alarm. Together, we can make sure that our buildings remain safe, and we can reduce the number of false alarms that our staff have to deal with. Thank you.